Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with the Huawei Mate 10 Lite for a full review. This is part of the Huawei Mate 10 Quartet, which debuted earlier this fall. Now, the Quartet includes the Mate 10, the Mate 10 Pro, which we reviewed, and the Mate 10 Porsche design. Of course, this is a Lite model that still has 4 cameras, 2 at the back, 2 at the front, a pretty sturdy metal body, and it's one of the few Huawei's to have an 18:9 aspect ratio display. It actually inaugurated it. People know it by many names. Some of them call this phone the Huawei Nova 2i, the Mate 6, the Honor 9i, or the Huawei G10. It debuted under quite a few names. It's priced at around $400 in the Mate 10 Lite version, and it's time to review it. Interestingly, it has no predecessor. There was no Mate 9 Lite, so it makes it all the more exciting. Now, on the design front, it's a 5.9-inch phablet with 18:9 aspect. It measures 7.5mm in thickness and weighs 164 grams. As a comparison, the Mate 10 Pro is thicker at 7.9mm and also heavier at 178 grams. It's got a pretty prominent set of antenna lines at the bottom and the top. Strangely, the antenna line is split by the camera's flash. There's 2.5D glass at the front, looking quite nice. And this is the type of phone that's tall and wide. Certainly not very easy to use with a single hand unless you have a big hand. Anyway, it's comfy to grasp, it's got good grip, and the buttons here have a pretty nice feedback. The build is solid, it's premium. I love the back texture. Feels a bit like an iPhone or an iPad, but in the end, since it's so big, it's not exactly easy to wield, but also not very uncomfortable. I would also have to say that the camera protrudes a bit, and I regret the fact that the phone is not waterproof. Now, when everything's said and done, it's time to head further into the display. 5.9-inch, as I said, IPS LCD with a resolution of 2160 over 1080 pixels and 18:9 aspect, 76.5% screen to body ratio. So the panel has narrow bezels, and in order to watch some videos, going to have to resort to the typical video app. This one here offers us a pop-up play feature, the speed set up here, so you can increase or decrease the playback speed. But let's actually enjoy the video. So we are getting here colors that feel a bit, I would say, not exactly washed out, but rather too white. They feel a bit covered in white, like sort of a little fog. We got wide view angles, reasonably wide for an IPS LCD. They would seem wider if the screen was brighter. The brightness is, I would say, okay, not more than that, and the contrast was rather modest, even though we didn't have a strong sun to face it with. Now, when it comes to the screen calibration and other measurements, we put the display under the microscope, and this is what came out. This is the pixel arrangement, it's RGB stripes, and it's typical. And we also measure the brightness with a pretty underwhelming result of 294 lux units. Underwhelming, it's actually the 195th phone from all the phones we've tested. It may beat the ZTE Nubia Z11 Mini or the LG G Flex 2, but scores below the LG G3 and the Huawei P8, and also the Xiaomi Mi 6 has double or more than double this value. Now we can also do tweaks and settings for the phone's display. We have this full screen display, so you can actually enjoy the full screen state. As you saw before when I was playing that video, it did not fit on the whole screen. We got a view mode with small, medium or large. We got text size. We got screensaver, eye comfort, so you can filter out the blue and sleep better. Brightness, color temperature, which we also saw on the Mate 10 Pro, and sleep plus auto rotate. In the end, I'm pretty underwhelmed by the screen's brightness and also by the color calibration, so I wished maybe for a better phone in this area, particularly since the other P Lite phones, this is a Mate Lite phone, well, the P Lite phones were a bit brighter. Now we move on to other hardware, so I'm going to start off with the CPU. Is the Huawei HiSilicon Kirin 659. It's an octa-core CPU clocked up to 2.36 GHz, and as far as the GPU goes, it's the Mali T830MP2. We also get 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of storage, not bad for a mid-ranger, of which 48 are free, and there's also a micro SD card slot, and luckily I did not encounter any trace of lag here. I know we have many apps, and even if you open up most of them, you will not experience or feel any trace of lag. I mean, for a typical Huawei phone at least. Now, It's time to also talk about the performance in gaming. So we play Riptide GP Renegade. By the way, the phone comes with some games pre-installed, which is something I'm not a big fan of. But let's first play this title. So it's a racing game. It's got hovercrafts or whatever they call them, hydrojets, and seems to be working fine from the menus. I can already tell from the menu it's going to be pretty well calibrated. Responds well to my commands. Water looks swell. Nice music, nice speaker, and nice rendering of the environment. Those two extra moving lines above me make me feel that the speed is real, and I'm really enjoying this format for gaming, a big phone with a wider screen aspect. Comfy, works fine, moves fine, good for gaming. Now let's go into other aspects like the benchmarks. So we also have those. We go here, we have a ton of them. As you probably know already, we have ditched quadrant, so I'm going to skip straight to Antutu. In Antutu we have this score, Antutu 6. It beats the Huawei P9 Lite 2017, the Motorola Moto M, but scores below the Galaxy A3 2017 and the Motorola Moto Z Play. Now we also did a graphics benchmark, which is the, well, famous for me, I don't know if it's famous for you, 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme. I would say the score is modest, but still it beats the Galaxy A3 2017, the Motorola Moto G5S and the Nubia N1 from ZTE. And let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so we also did Geekbench 4. This is the render script, and these are the single core and the multi-core test. As you can see, not the best results in the world. However, I have to say that in the multi-core test we surpassed the Huawei Nova, the Xiaomi Redmi 4 and the Huawei Mate 9, which for me was a surprise. Still we scored below the Huawei P9 Lite 2017 and that's famous Galaxy J5 2017, which is also a bit of a rival for this phone, although smaller. Overall, I would say that it feels somewhere in between the results of the Huawei P9 Lite 2017 and the Huawei P10 Lite, if you really want to fit it somewhere in the Huawei portfolio. Now we also did some temperature tests, and for example we achieved 36.3 degrees Celsius when playing the game you saw before, Riptide, and when running the intensive benchmark GFX bench it's 34 degrees Celsius, so not bad at all, no overheating. Now when it comes to the battery, it sounds pretty nice on paper, 3340 mAh. Keep in mind that the P10 Lite and the P9 Lite gravitated at 3000 mAh and the Mate 10 at 4000, it's there where it should be. Now when it comes to the actual tests, as usual we play the video on a loop and try to find how good the phone is for continuous HD video playback on, let's say, maybe Netflix, YouTube and so forth. So basically it's 8 hours 25 minutes, which is rather modest. It's placed on the 129th spot, certainly no record, but it's enough to defeat the Allview X4 Soul Infinity N, maybe the OnePlus 3, but scores below the Huawei Honor 5X and the Huawei P9 Lite 2017, which actually reached a crazy 14 hours 31 minutes. That's a good result. Now in the PCMark continuous usage test we got as high as 6 hours and 28 minutes, not very impressive, 102nd spot. It beats the LG Nexus 5X and the Huawei P10 Plus as well as the Motorola Moto M, but scores below the Huawei P10, P10 Lite, Mate 9, which actually the Mate 9 goes to 11 hours and 4 minutes. The charging is done in 2 hours 28 minutes. It's right there where it should be for a mid-range phone, superior to the Huawei Honor 4X and the P8 Lite. And we also did the charging in steps and achieved an 8% charge after 5 minutes and a 30% charge after 30 minutes plus 1 hour equals 57%. Now the battery, of course, has its own options, and they include power saving mode, ultra power saving mode, low resolution power saving, one touch optimization, and keep Wi-Fi on during sleep. So pretty okay options, but I'm a bit underwhelmed, especially by the video playback. I wanted it to be more than 10 hours because I've seen many phones that achieve that. Now when it comes to the acoustics, we only have the speaker here. You can see we have a 6-hole speaker, and the Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro, or at least the Mate 10 Pro, offered us dual speaker. Well, not this one. The earpiece is just for calling and the bottom one is just for music, so let's put it to the test. Of course, you have the music player and it's dedicated. It's not longer just play music. It's music and it has no equalizer. The equalizer is separate and it can be found in the settings. Okay, so the good news is that the speaker here is not easy to cover in landscape mode when you're gaming or watching a movie. As you can see, my finger doesn't reach that area. And now let's go to the actual tunes and let's listen to this one. Okay, so you heard everything you needed. There's no vibration of the back side. The volume is quite high. The bass is, I would say, modest. The voice and the high notes are pretty well rendered. There's no distortion. We do have an audio jack. We do have FM radio. The headphones which you saw in the unboxing are pretty generic. They're not the kind of headphones which Huawei offers with flagships. The ones that copy the Apple AirPods, they're just plastic, rigid, with okay volume and no bass. And if you really want to mess around with the acoustics, we have the sound area here. You can go to the Huawei Hi-Stun. These are activated with the headset. They include something like the headset type, an EQ with some genre options, and 3D audio with near, front and wide. It sort of simulates a slight bit of surround. When it comes to the actual volume, we have a decibel meter and we're not afraid to use it. We achieved 84.1 decibels the front and the back side, which is quite okay with our typical acoustic sample. It beats the Samsung Galaxy J5 from 2017 and the Huawei P10 Plus. Still, it scores below the Samsung Galaxy A3 2017 and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4X. Now the other test is a bit more impressive. It involves the game Riptide, the one from before. It's 97.1 decibels, it's solid, and it beats heavy hitters like the Google Pixel 2 XL and HTC 11. Still, other phones, even cheaper ones, are better, like the LG Q6 and the Samsung Galaxy J5 2017. Now we are done with the acoustics. Time to address the cameras. There's 4 cameras here. We got 2 at the front for the selfies and 2 at the back with a single LED flash. Now the back side includes 16 megapixel plus 2 megapixel f2.2 aperture, face detection, autofocus, and the front 13 megapixel and 2 megapixel. Both of them do bokeh portrait shots, and the 2 megapixel camera is obviously for depth of field, while the main one is, well, for capture. Now the camera UI is super familiar if you've seen a Huawei phone lately, especially the Lite models. I'm talking about the P10 Lite, the P9 Lite. It's basically the same experience in a nutshell. Pretty fast photo taking, I would say mediocre speed of focusing, but still reasonable for a mid-range phone. Options include moving photo, which is basically like the live photo from the Apple devices. We got this portrait option. Portrait mode is best at about 0.5 meters to 2 meters. You can also apply some beautification. We got your wide angle options here with a bit of post editing also available. And the modes, we got Pro, Video, HDR, Night Shot, Panorama, Light Paint, Time Lapse, Slow-Mo, Filter, Effects, Watermark, and Audio Note. And then we have the actual settings like resolution, RAW, format capture, some image adjustments like saturation, contrast, and brightness. And in case you're wondering, nope, you cannot film in 4K, just regular Full HD. Now it's time to go to the gallery and see how the camera did. So we have 271 shots. They were taken in December on a pretty cold and cloudy day, but still not hugely cloudy. You could tell a bit of light from the clouds about to snow. So I would have to say that the colors are not bad at all. I'm actually pretty impressed by the colors. Was not expecting this. I've been let down by Chinese phones before in the area of color, but this time no letdown. Okay, so you can probably notice already that the beautification feature works a bit too well. The skin is too smooth, the eyes are too, I would say, Japanese cartoon-like. But let's get back to the main camera. So clarity is good, details are actually not bad, the cards are pretty well calibrated, but things tend to feel a bit darker than usual. I'm talking here about the brightness and exposure. Usually modern phones, even mid-ranger, are able to capture a slight bit more light than this handset here. Once again, a cloudy December day, and now let's move forward. So a few more shots here, finally some color. Once again happy with the color calibration, and I also have some landscape shots, which I have to admit, not bad details. I know it's a mere 16 megapixel camera, but come on, the details are actually quite acceptable for December. And for this phone, of course, we play with the wide aperture, and of course we generated a pretty badass bokeh behind. Well, I would say it's within the norm, not exaggerated and also not too little to be called portrait or bokeh. You can edit it after the fact, touch to refocus. As you can see, I'm focusing on tiger and changing the level of blur behind it. Now the selfies have been redone. We also play with the portrait option here. Everything is blurred behind you and makes the face jump out. One strange thing, I'm loving the texture of the clothes. I know it sounds funny, but we usually focus on the face, on the hair, facial hair and all that. I'm actually loving the way the clothes are rendered this time. I know it's odd, but something to remember for the future. And some pretty nifty close-ups. Excellent texture. We caught some raindrops here because yes, it was raining a bit, and in spite of that, some pretty solid close-ups and nice colors, and several more attempts at selfies, this time without the hat on, so you can actually discern the whole face. And I would have to say that I'm pretty impressed with the selfie camera overall, perhaps even more impressed than the back camera, which is not shabby in its own way. Panorama has a resolution of 9856 over 2304. We take great close-ups. I'm happy with the colors, with the details. I would say that it's on par with the Huawei P10 Lite, the Sony Xperia XA1, and not bad overall. Even gets close to the Zenfone 3, and it's even slightly above the Xiaomi Mi A1, and it beats all the other Chinese dual camera phones I've tested recently. Now these are all daytime shots. Now we go to the low light capture. It's taken during the night at 12 AM or 1 AM, and it of course has more blur than the daytime shots. We do have a pretty solid flash that makes things a bit, well, red. You can see here a tint of red and orange. I would say that the bokeh is not that good, the portrait mode not that good during the night as it was during the day. Of course things are darker, we're used to phones with better aperture, but overall the details, the clarity and even the street light halos, at least in the later shots, were quite fine. There's a bit of a blue hue at the top of the images. If you really go on the PC, see them there and zoom in, you'll notice that blue, but overall you will really be able to actually figure out which monuments you're capturing and remember the times you had in a certain area of the world. So if it's for a tourism phone, it works just fine during the night. And as a comparison, it's similar once again to the Huawei P10 Lite and the P9i 2017. I also feel it's slightly above the Sony Xperia XA1 Ultra, because that one had more vivid colors, but it actually exaggerates with the vividness. This is a bit more pragmatic. Overall okay during the night, and also slightly superior to the Motorola Moto G5S Plus, which creates pink hues and big halos. Now we are done, totally done with the photos. Time to go to the videos, and I'm not going to look for them in the gallery. I'm going to resort to the video app, check them out. So we have 7 local videos. We've taken Full HD MP4 captures, 30 frames per second and 70 megapixel bitrate, and I'm going to start with this one here. So pretty nice colors. I just hit the microphone. A pretty discreet exposure change as you switched from the shade to the light. Nice clarity. Poor details in the distance. If you try to look for the leaves or the details of the trees in the distance, no luck. If you zoom in, things will get pixelated pretty fast. Even at 2x and 3x, you'll see that. Once again, the colors are quite good. Also happy with the microphone when I'm not hitting it by mistake. And I would have to say that things are also shaky, so forget about stabilization. We actually did not have it, but electronic one should have done the trick. Well, not here. Things feel a bit murky sometimes. It's like there was a shade of gray covering the image sometimes. And I have to say that this is one of the best exposure changes on a mid-range phone lately. I also feel that the reds, the hue of red here is closer to pink than it should be, and the acoustics have some echo, but other than that, it feels like a Huawei P9 Lite or the P10 Lite. It beats the older Honor phones. You remember the Huawei Honor 6, Honor 7, it's clearly past them. And it's certainly no Xperia, that's for sure, no Xperia XA1 or XA1 Ultra. but it also does not have the problem with the green hues that those have. The clarity is okay, loving the exposure, the focus. Stabilization, I know it's poor, and I would be able to compare it to the Motorola Moto G5S and G5S Plus, but it's clearly below the mid-range Xperias. The thing that's lacking the most here is probably the stabilization and maybe the details. Now this was daytime filming, it's time to see how the nighttime filming goes. Now as far as the low light video capture goes, it's still Full HD, MP4, 30 frames per second and 17 mega per second, and I have to say that it's a bit foggy and shaky. That's what a video looks like. It's still December, it's the winter time, but I find the colors to be pretty realistic. Things are also a bit grainy. The acoustics are, I would say, quite okay. We have one more video here. This time also with some motion, pretty okay. Object tracking, of course, shaky still, but in the end a bit above my expectations. Of course, the zoom drops details a lot. A good thing is that we do not have too much yellow hue bothering us. One more video here, also low light conditions during the night time, so modest zoom, some blue hues when panning, shaky, overall a pretty okay clarity. The halos aren't exactly huge and the lighting is quite good. I would put it on par with the Huawei P10 Lite and P9 Lite to 2017, maybe even a bit better. Now we are done with the camera, time to talk about the web browser. In this case it's Chrome, and I'm going to have to access gsmom.com right now. So Chrome here is reasonably fast, but its benchmarks are modest, they're mid-level. Talking about SunSpider and Velamo here, we're using SwiftKey for input with swipe support, quite responsive and having a numeric row. And now when it comes to the connectivity, as you can well see here, we have the audio jack, we have a micro USB port, no trace of USB Type-C. This is a dual SIM phone with 4G LTE category 6 support, up to 300 mega per second downloads, at least on paper. Here we have the connectivity options. As you can see, NFC is lacking, and we also have Wi-Fi BGN. As far as I know, only in the 2.5 GHz band. There's no support for Wi-Fi dual band. We have GPS, GLONASS, there is no infrared, and we also have Link Plus. This is a micro USB 2.0 port with USB OTG support. Now, as far as the calls are concerned, we got typical options here. You got your speed dial, your pocket mode. The calls are pretty clear, but the volume should be and could be a bit higher. Now, speaking of things that could be higher, we also did some speed tests, and let's see how those panned out. These are the results we achieved. Rather modest in Wi-Fi, 50 mega per second downloads, 25 mega per second uploads. Expected quite a bit more. On 4G it's good, 102 mega per second downloads, 47 mega per second uploads, so the Wi-Fi could use a bump up. Now on the software front, this is clearly Android. It's Android Nougat 7.0 with EMUI 5.1 on top. Basically a similar experience to the one you saw on the Huawei P10 and maybe also the Mate 9. We have an app drawer here, but it's an optional setting. You can have it on or off, or have all the apps on the home screens. The colors of the hue are pretty typical, abstract, minimalistic and matte, no gloss. They're basically matted out. Okay, so multitasking happens via carousel, and you can also use split screen. We have one app here, and if you want to do something else in the meantime, you have something like a gallery here, so you can browse around photos and browse the web at the same time via split screen multitasking. Pinch the home screen and you get wallpaper, widgets, transitions and settings. Widgets are pretty straightforward, some of them stock, some of them Huawei specific. Transitions and settings related to auto align, layout, shake, home screen loop and all that jazz. Okay, other than that, the drop down portion includes notifications and quick settings, some of them quite useful, like the Huawei Share, Screenshot, Torch and so forth. The settings are also typical of a Huawei phone. We got dual SIM settings. This is a dual SIM phone, forgot to mention that in the connectivity area. Anyways, let's go further. So we got home screen style, notification and status bar, navigation key setups, this one's here, screen lock and passwords, smart assistance, basically floating dock, motion control, which is here. Knuckle gestures are still on. You can draw stuff on the screen to open up apps. There's voice control, there's one-handed UI, gloves mode, and so much more. Do not disturb, cloud, app twin, so you can use two instances of the same app, in this case Facebook. And we left the last security and the privacy. There's a virus scanner here, and of course the fingerprint ID. Now you can use the fingerprint scanner at the back here for multiple purposes. Talking about stuff like take photos, videos, answer the call, stop the alarm, or swipe it to trigger the notification panel or browse photos. Now I'm going to do a fast setup for you and also use it to authenticate within it. Okay, now it's time for the setup. New fingerprint, enroll it. It requires something like 10 steps. I'm going to have to put my finger on it multiple times. It's completed and requires one last press. Okay, that's it. And now with a single gentle press, you can unlock the phone. So it's locked, gentle press, voila. Gentle press from 90 degrees and finally 180 degrees. Gently touch it and that's it. So pretty accurate and pretty fast fingerprint scanner. Now other things here, applications, there's a lot of them. We're already used to that on Huawei phones. 53 in this case. You got booking.com. If you're planning a vacation, we got games like Asphalt Nitro. Got your calendar here. There's also the usual Google package like Drive and so forth. Duo, there's eBay for some reason. We also have Health, which hooks up to your Huawei account, counts your steps and all the things related to it, all the other calories you consume and so forth. Phone Manager, probably the most useful app, with a cleaner, mobile data, blocker, virus scanner permissions, and so much more. Okay, plus the weather, YouTube, and that's about it. These are the pre-installed apps. Now I guess it's time to deliver the verdict for the Huawei Mate 10 Lite. So first the pros and cons. On the pro side, it's got a solid design, also quite good looking, made of premium materials. Performance isn't half bad. The whole bokeh wide aperture thing was pretty convincing for the front cam and the back camera. I was particularly surprised by the selfies. They're actually quite good quality. Acoustics are quite loud, I have to say. And we have a pretty okay-ish video playback time. Not the best at 8 hours, but I've seen worse. Good colors for the pictures, well calibrated, solid selfies, fast and accurate fingerprint scanner, and once again good portrait options, and the fact that the performance is good and there's no lag is always a plus. Those are the pros. Now on the cons, we have the fact that the phone is a bit pricier than it should be. They should sell it at around $300, maybe less, because it can get cannibalized by the Huawei P10 Lite or the P9 Lite 2017. It's not waterproof, it doesn't have USB Type-C, it's got a low screen brightness, a mid-level battery below our expectations, it's got poor stabilization for the camera, slow Wi-Fi, there's no 5 GHz support, no Android Oreo, and a bit of bloatware, so those are the cons after the pros. In the end, it feels basically like a bigger Huawei P10 Lite, this Mate 10 Lite. However, the footprint is pretty compact for such a big phone. It has basically the same performance as the other Lite models. Also the same camera performance, with a plus made by 2 extra sensors that handle depth at the back one and at the front one, plus an extra flash up front. It makes compromises for the display and battery, but those are the only ones. It takes very good selfies, it can handle the gaming and the music, so you're going to buy it probably if you're a teen or a youngster, because they want selfies, gaming and music. I would wait till the price drops. $300 or $250 sounds more reasonable for this handset. So this is the Huawei Mate 10 Lite, and here at gsm.com we find that it's a bigger P10 Lite with more compromises, but it's still pretty good for a gaming machine, quite immersive thanks to the new aspect ratio. This is from gsm.com. This has been the review of the Mate 10 Lite from Huawei. Bye bye.